Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this Thursday evening edition of the Deep Woo. Yes, Manifest Destiny with MEG MOONBEAM. Please join me in welcoming her. Of course, you can find her here at MAISONJupiter.com, soon to be on the Academy also, and finally on Maison Jupiter's YouTube channel, where she just recorded the other day with Julie the Astro Decode Mercury Retrograde. Meg, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hello, very good to be with you again. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been a busy week. As you can see, there's a big production schedule, but I'm still energized and absolutely excited to have this conversation with you here tonight. First of all, before we get into tonight's subject matter, let's go back a slide or two here and talk about the Mercury retrograde. When I posted the adverts for this on Twitter, I'm like, oh shit, it's the retrograde. Damn it. As if things are not hard enough as it stands here in the last couple of weeks and months with all these energies. Of course, we have to throw in a retrograde in all of this. Share that with the audience members very quickly here. What's a retrograde, and when are the dates? What can we expect, and how do we navigate this for our highest good?
For sure, yeah. So it's super important. A retrograde, for those of you who may not know, is when a planet looks like it's moving backwards from our Earth's perspective, but it's actually kind of what we call station. It's like going in a loop in the same place. So really interesting. So it's not in its forward direct motion, which is like moving forward, being able to manifest and just kind of things working out easily. It's in a backwards motion. Yeah. So Mercury is the planet of communication and our mind and contracts and social media and lots of really important things. So it's actually a time to hold off if you can. I know life really gets in the way sometimes and we have to make really important decisions, but it's really a time to do review, reflection, and not so much like buying a new house if possible or making any crazy decisions or having any intense conversations. We want to lay low and we want to know where in our chart the Mercury retrograde is happening in. So that episode that Julie and I did, the Astro Decode episode we did yesterday on the Maison Jupiter YouTube channel, we talked about that. So we went through each of the sun signs, rising signs, and talked about where everybody is going to get affected, depending on your sun and rising sign. And yeah, it's not the end of the world. I like how Julie was speaking very eloquently on it's more like minor inconveniences. Mm-hmm. When you think that you've said something a certain way, but then it gets taken completely the wrong way, that can happen more easily. Or buying things that we don't necessarily need, things breaking down, just that kind of communication and technological stuff. So we've got that from April 21st to, I believe, May 14th. And it's going to be exactly during eclipse season.
Yeah, to make things worse.
To make things, just for some fun, just a
little bit more interesting, in case your life was boring. There's two eclipses. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So this is really like, I'm actually feeling Spirit say, don't take anything personally right now, you guys.
Yeah.
Because we're all processing so much. And the last time JC and I spoke, he said something that really stuck with me, which was that we're all really fucked up. We're all really,
Did I say that?
yeah, that we're all fucked up in different ways. And just in terms of trauma that we've been through the past.
We've all been through the meat grinder.
We've been through the ringer.
One of us. Yeah, exactly.
And some of us are dealing with that a lot better than others. Mm-hmm. But I don't think most of us have taken the time to really process that yet. So we're all in a very kind of, I think, sensitive place. And this is a time when we don't want to be taking things personally. People can say things they may not necessarily mean, or just weird communication breakdown is the biggest thing with this.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Diana, Toronto is in the house. Hey, let me know if you guys are watching, where you're watching from. I always love to read that during the live introduction part of the show to know who's watching and where they're watching from. Sounds like what JC would say. Yeah, we're all fucked up. Okay. Don't be putting words in my mouth there. Okay, I started a comment already. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Bob says, when I grow up, I'd like to be just like Jean-Claude. I'm only 61, going on 20. Okay. Well, I love the spirit and the energy and the young at heart meaning behind all of that. Bob, thank you so much for joining. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here tonight. Just going back quickly on the retrograde, was there a specific sign, or maybe more than one specific sign, that might have a little bit more issues with this retrograde than everybody else? And if so, like, who's that, and how could they best manage all of this for themselves?
Yeah, I think maybe Tauruses, people that are Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising, which is actually both you and I, JC. So, Taurus rules the comforts of life, the enjoyments of life, the things that feel good, food, music, sensuality, all the enjoyments of life.
Mm-hmm.
And with this being retrograde and an eclipse at the same time, this isn't a stable energy. So those of us that have Taurus placements, that like when we're in comfort and we're in the enjoyments of life, it's going to be, I think, the most challenging for us being in the same place.
I didn't expect it to be me. Lisa says, I like it when JC swears. Okay. Illinois, 85 degrees here today. Dude, it was really nice out here today. I actually got a bit of a suntan, as you can see. Like, it's beautiful weather. How is it where you're at, Meg?
It's like 30 degrees here in the Toronto area, at 1.31. So nice. It feels like summer.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Finally, after a long winter. Meg, before we get into our main topic for today too, what's the general read right now with your clients? What's coming up in the field with these personal forecasts here on MaisonJupiter.com? Is there a specific theme here in the last week?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people just wanting, reassurance that they're on the right path, which I feel like I'm saying all the time, but especially in these times where there's so much brainwashing going on. There's so many projections from the Matrix and agents from the Matrix trying to mess with us, like-minded soul family. It's just, I find what I love about the astrology is it's always sharing, usually what people are already feeling or doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a really great reflection to show that you're already in the natural energies. Very rarely is someone super blocked. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Libby says, Meg Moonbeam, you're looking divinely radiant.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. So, Meg, what did you want us to talk about tonight?
Well, I think we're going to talk about some sexual topics and the divine feminine and the divine masculine. Tribal Rice says, Diana B says echo from Meg.
I'll mute myself while you go. Keep going with the intro.
Okay. Yeah, so we're feeling to talk about some sensual energies, the masculine, the feminine, what's going on with that. That seems to be a really big theme right now, the polarization and the, what I've been feeling, perversion of the masculine and the feminine in the collective.
We just had a show. When was that? Last week? I can't find it right now. Julie and I interviewed Penny Kelly. Here it is. And we were just talking about some of this subject matter and suggesting that perhaps we needed to come back and revisit it. And humans needed to understand really the nature of what is sex, as opposed to what we've been taught to believe sex is. So she was saying that we kind of understand this like a very small sliver, but really there's a big spectrum of potentiality with that energy, and for the most part we've been obfuscated from all of that, from religion, from different points of views, or education and all of that. And what she was saying too, well, she actually said this in my first YouTube channel, and it kind of got deleted not long after that. We were going to do a series on Kundalini, the awakening of Kundalini. And she said something to the effect that for humanity to understand the nature of their power as it pertains to Orgone, Ki, Prana, Kundalini is really the last gate to their freedom. So that was very profound. A lot of people were like, wait, what? Really? And she's like, oh yeah, if you only knew what you were talking about. So let's start there, Meg. Well, how do you want to start? Let me put it this way. I'm more than happy to flow with you in any direction here, but let's start on some track here. For some people, of course, it's a little bit of a triggering topic. I'm just going to ask you to be polite, and you might agree, not agree with what we're trying to convey with you this evening, but it's really just an adult conversation, and we're trying to, I guess, understand a little bit better who we are, where we come from, and what we can do with this ultimate power of ours that for the most part has been on lockdown for a long time here in our evolutionary process. With that said, Meg, where do you want to start?
Maybe we can start with, what's going on with the masculine and what's going on with the feminine. And, we're in this point right now, but I feel like the time period we're in right now in modern history is like an experimental phase. I've been hearing that a lot lately, because if you go back even 100 years, the masculine and the feminine was in a extremely different place collectively. Yeah. And what do we mean by that? The masculine and the feminine. Well, just what are the natural energies that women tend to hold, men tend to hold? And I am speaking in general terms here, but there are some women naturally that are just maybe a little bit more masculine. Like everybody's unique, not everybody's a copycat exactly the same. But we're seeing that, women have been kind of, what's the right word for me to use? I'll say brainwashed to kind of do exactly what men do, that we need to go to work the same way, that we can work the same way, that we should work the same way, that we should be able to be completely independent and not even have a man or a woman, if you're gay, a partner. And that's not the case. Physically, women are built completely differently from men. Mm-hmm. And we have different roles and gifts and talents on either side, right? So as we know, women are the natural nurturers and caretakers, right? And the males are the natural providers and action-oriented ones, and are physically, actually, scientifically stronger, right? So right now in our modern times, and I know a lot of you guys already know this, but it's just good to start with, like, we're in this time where the women are being brainwashed to be more masculine, and the masculine are being brainwashed to be more feminine, to throw off the whole natural energy of what there should be. Because when we do have healthy relationships, then people have families, then people have babies, then people have strong family units and family values. And if we were all in very strong family units and values, the, New World Order wouldn't be able to do what they're doing if we had that in the first place collectively. Right. So sex is very important because it's the most powerful force. It's the force of creation, right? It's one of the greatest pleasures in life. Things feel good and it's fun to do, but it also brings children into the world. Magical children. It brings the next generation into the world. So that whole sacredness of it has been perverted into porn and into it's bad and it's demonized and it's not sacred, and it really is.
You talked about keep going. Sorry.
No, and I know you've studied that a lot, JC. You're really good at explaining some of those kind of tantric knowledge for sure.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe we could get into some of that if it pertains to the conversation tonight. But first, I want to backtrack. You just said that on the physical standpoint, women are different than men. I'm like, what are you saying? Are you saying that men can't have babies and they can't produce milk? Because that's not what I'm hearing from mainstream news.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, right. What's that term? Go woke and go broke. Of course, $6 billion. Is that all? Anheuser-Busch here loses $6 billion in the last 6 days here of market cap with all this transgender agenda here in this Bud Light commercial. It's absolutely crazy. It's worse than what you were saying. Like, I completely agree with everything you said. And then some. So one, somebody was saying in the chat earlier, men have been feminized and females have been pushed towards masculinity. Yes, but here we're talking about a huge distortion. And I think we should talk about this a little bit here tonight. I kind of touched on it yesterday with Ricardo Bossi on the leadership show. And it has something to do with the hijacking of balancing the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Now, just like you described here, the feminist movement really brainwashed you guys away from the reality of what women is with all of these. Some of them really great ideas. I don't get me wrong, in terms of equality of pay, having the right to vote, all these things. We're totally in agreement with that. But in terms of the body itself, what's interesting is that we are seeing now a hijacking of this Age of Aquarius
Yeah.
theme of rebalancing the divine feminine and masculine. And we're seeing that here with the transgender agenda. And so that's very concerning because, again, we're thwarting away or preemptively thwarting a conversation, an energy, a rebalancing of the population. If you think about it, 20 years ago, another example of that was when they named a T group, a bad group with bad words. They named them ISIS. Do you remember? So again, we're on YouTube here, so we're going to watch our language. But that very bad group that did really bad things with booms and stuff like that, they were given the name ISIS, right? And so, okay. So just as the divine feminine was coming up, the sisterhood of knowledge of re-empowering women with their power, they kind of hijacked that and preemptively used that name to kind of sully the waters, right? So we're seeing that now here also with this transgender agenda, the same thing, where we're being called as humans to kind of rebalance left brain, right brain, or divine masculine and divine feminine energy so that we're better centered and we're creating from a 0 point energy, and thwarting that into all of these very, very confusing memes. Okay. Having said that, what's your first reaction to that? And folks in the live chat too, let us know, like, if you realize just how bad this subversion tactics really are against human. Once you kind of see it, you're like, oh my God. No wonder, as Meg said at the beginning of the show, we're all fucked up. Like, literally, we've been messed with on every single aspect of our evolution. But Meg, your first reaction to that hijacking of those keywords and energies coming up?
Yeah, I have a few things to say to that. And you're totally right, JC, that it is beyond words how screwed up this is. I mean, can you imagine, you guys, our ancestors, that some of our ancestors fought in the world wars? And I don't know about you guys, but I had ancestors that died in the world wars. What they would think of what's going on right now, like, they would be so pissed off. They probably are really, pissed on the other side, I think. And just confused, like, it doesn't make sense naturally. Right. And, us being in the beginning of the Age of Aquarius with Pluto in Aquarius, we're going to see the dark side of Aquarius play out over the next little bit. It's not going to be a very long time, but we're going to see it play out. So we go kind of as a society, okay, yeah, this transhumanism path of having no gender, because that's what this really is all about. And David Icke is really good at talking about that, about how this whole intention, and people that he's talked to that are survivors of the networks and stuff, they've heard the elites talk about how they want to push transgenderism to, confuse us, like some of you guys are saying in the chat. And we're going to see how that's not going to play out well. It's not going to play out for our brothers and sisters that have unfortunately fallen for this and had body parts chopped off that they'll never be able to get back, and really horrible things happen. It's beyond messed up. And I think it does have to do with that Aquarius energy and that dark side of Aquarius, which is transhumanism. I think that that's what the agenda is with this whole thing going on. And when we have the strong women, like even those of us who are like-minded and awake, if you will, this does affect us. Even, if we are more in our feminine or more in our masculine than normies or whatever, if you will. Because for women, for example, what we used to do when we lived in tribes or more natural societies was the women would all eat together, right? The women would do our sacred ceremonies together. And that's what we should be doing. And speaking as a woman, like I saw one of our soul sisters in the chat here say, it's a complete slap in the face to see Dylan Mulvaney making like jokes about tampons, because, and if this is too like graphic or whatever, guys, but we bleed once a month and it's really fucking hard. And some women have it really, really bad, and it's pain the whole time, and your mood gets totally shifted. And we're doing that alone for the most part. And how women should be doing that is in sacred circle and in sacred community with other women. And all of that has been demonized and taken away, and it's hush hush, and we shouldn't talk about it, and it's disgusting, right? It's actually super, super sacred, the women's blood. And I know that's a whole different subject, but these things are sacred. and they've been put down, right? And like the men, even though men don't necessarily bleed, you know, they're the ones that are there during the women, not during the women, there for that time during the women, and need to be there for us. It's not easy to have periods. It's not easy to give birth. It's not easy to have a baby on you the first 4 days or whatever it's born. It's a full-time job, right? And it's been a total illusion what's going on. And I'm really happy because I do believe that we are going to get back into a place where we step back into those energies. And it's not negative for women to be feminine. It's actually our superpower. And again, there are some women that are naturally a little bit more masculine and warriors and all that. But for the most part, it's not all women. Like how men, you know, like JC, I'm sure when you're with your guy friends, it's not normal for the most part that most guys are overly feminine. Sure, there are ones that are like that, but it's not most of them, right? Does that make sense how I'm explaining that?
Yeah, it does. And I took some notes. I didn't want to interrupt you. That's very important. The part about the blood and how sacred that is to that time of the month. I'll get back to that later in the show if we have time. And also about the body, the nudity. We need to touch that. But I wanted to come back here too to Isis. Now, let me just bring up a term for you guys here also. Just again, this term of hijacking of these energies. Just so you understand where I'm getting at here. So Julie, Janine, and myself, we produced this episode on Rumble. It was called Pluto the Destroyer. And we're talking about these archetypes and these alignments that we're living now. We've been in them for a couple months, but really that start date here was March 23rd in terms of the exact alignment, the beginning of this. But we were already in those energies for quite some time. Now, the last time we had this alignment was in 1789. And so that led to the storming of the Bastille. It led to the French Revolution. And it led to this term that today is bastardized in many ways, and it's the Mariannes. The Mariannes were the bare-breasted warriors of the French Revolution. And as Jay Weiner reminded us during the last show, the Nostradamus Decode with Julie last week, I think, he said, really, the French Revolution really got started when the women got involved. That's when this whole galvanization of this force, and again, having that divine feminine inspiring the man at that point was so powerful. So let me go to some of the imagery here. So that's burnt into our minds. And right now, we had this video a couple of weeks ago about why perhaps in France, in Quebec, here in Canada, the last couple of years were really, really worse than some other regions around the world in terms of the strategies at play with the thing that was happening on YouTube, right? And so we kind of alluded to the fact that there's this energy of the French Revolution now happening again on this planet, not just in France, of course. We're seeing the fires in France now for over a month, but this idea and this energy is back, and it makes a whole lot of sense now when you look at the astrology of things. Now, what was even more interesting to that, again, I'm just going to tie this back into why I said ISIS for that really bad group in the early 2000s here. Under Notre-Dame de Paris, there is an old Isis temple. And so when Notre-Dame de Paris burnt, a lot of the psychic seers, the Sisterhood of the Rose, some of these, how do I say it? I'll say secret societies for now, and just to say they're not all bad. Okay, so depending on your point of view, they're not necessarily bad. But they were saying that what was happening was the energies of the temple of Isis was really below the church here, and the church being the, I guess, poster child or the energy or the anchor of the wounded male patriarchy running the show on the planet through the religion, that was being burned away here. Okay, so if you look at the symbology of all that, you could see that all of this energy was coming up. And of course, we were treated to maybe a year later, this imagery again in France, and now more and more at every aspect of the way. The nudity is not necessarily part of it here, but it's the divine feminine in her vulnerability being up front on stage, on the screen, like Meg is doing now, like Julie does on Maison Jupiter, leading the way in this 6G warfare that we find ourselves in. So when you put all of that together and you realize, oh my God, this is why the distortion is so heavy. Well, you just talked about the mockery that these woke agendas are doing, but it's even worse than that. They're really getting at trying to extricate themselves from this energy of Pluto that is very detrimental to them. But in the same time, they're thwarting our natural evolutions, the natural energies that are coming back up in the divine feminine, in the divine masculine, to find our place in this world. Because in 1789, again, this is when the La Charte des Droits in France was put in place. Also, like, we realized that all humans had these rights, and this is very much what is being quashed right now. If you look at whether that's censorship, whether that's political, whether that's the right to be who you are. This is a hard conversation with you. Damn you. Damn you. We've done this on Rumble. You always get me into all these problematic areas and make a valuable conversation nonetheless here for YouTube. And let me know, guys, if you agree here with the continuation of this subject matter. But let me ask you this, though, Meg. In the context of this energy of Isis coming up, the resurrection of the priestess, in some cases, the sacred prostitute, these are also terms that need to be revered and respected in a very big way. And how that's being not just mocked, but also tragically usurped in such a way as to thwart humanity's ability again to assert its freedom. What are your thoughts based on that? Pull in the astrology if you want, pull in your inner guidance, but share with the audience members why understanding that in the bigger picture can give us some clues on how to not just extricate ourselves from this control, but really, really strive for freedom, because that energy is right there before us now, and available to us, really, if we only knew how powerful we were.
Yeah, I got to just shout out my friend Troy here, who I haven't seen in years. Hi, Troy. Love you. Sorry. Yeah, with Isis, we used to, and I was a part of that priestesshood for sure. And that was a really sacred thing where we used to do, tantric practices to help people be able to do sexuality in a sacred and natural way. And that's something that's been completely demonized and taken away. A lot of that temple work, a lot of that tantric priestesshood, and it's healing energy. And to me, Tantra, and everybody has different feelings on this, but to me, tantric energy is not just sexual, but it's also very creative. So if you're naturally very spiritual or intuitive or even creative, you have a tantric healing energy about you. And some of you guys may have noticed this, that people maybe feel, and this may sound weird for me to say, but very attracted to you when they're around you, or sexual around you, or aroused, because a lot of us have actually been priestesses, priests. We've been tantric workers in past lives, those of us that are light workers, and we know how to use that energy. And we activate people just by being around them. We don't necessarily have to do something overtly sexual or something. It's just an energy that gets activated, if that makes sense, that tantric healing energy. And a lot of us have done that for lifetimes and lifetimes. And with Isis and that priestesshood, that was very much about the divine feminine and the gifts of the divine feminine. And another thing about the feminine that's really interesting is it rules in not just astrology, but natural living. Intuition and spirituality is a feminine energy. So that's why sometimes I see in the comment, JC, you should have more guys on here. Where's the guys? Which, yeah, it'd be nice to have some more guys, a part of the community. But the truth is, women are the ones that are actually more intuitive. And if you've ever been to a spiritual workshop or course, it's mostly women. There's like maybe one dude, or sometimes a few dudes if you're very lucky, right?
I'm always the single dude in a room when I go to retreats, by the way.
Yeah. So we're the ones that are naturally connected to that. It doesn't mean that men can't be. All of you men that are listening out there, like, that's amazing, because you guys have got an active masculine and feminine. So that's absolutely amazing if you're open to spirituality and the woo. But women are way more naturally open to it. And that's a really big, when you're talking about Pluto, the destroyer, right? The dark arts wants to take the women out of their natural energy, because if all the women are not, naturally intuitive, and it doesn't mean you have to be a professional psychic or something like that, but just tapped into the rhythms of the moon, tapped into their tantric, even sexual energy, creative, spiritual energy, that wakes up the whole world. Right? If women are not just working all the time or being brainwashed, they have to do what men are doing the whole time. They're in their natural energy of nurturing, of intuition, of being connected to their cycle and nature. And that's the last thing that the dark arts wants.
Oh,
So
the very last thing. Yeah.
very,
Janine kind of talked about that earlier today at the beginning of the War Correspondent Show, if you haven't seen it. We were talking about this energy and how it's so important to be able to actually how more destructive it actually is to the old system. And I wanted to bring up this book by Carrie Cassidy, The Rebel Gene. I did a book review with her 2 years ago, maybe on the first channel, and we were discussing how, similar to what you're saying now, this energy is growing up again inside of us. We're getting closer to remembering who we are, how powerful we actually are. And that was also perhaps one of the attempts that was used in the last 2-3 years to separate us, right? We had this big policy of separation. We could call it that here on YouTube. And that had to do with a scalar effect. And so, as Meg was just saying now, if you're empowered and you're tapped into this energy, we can get into the Tantra at some other point, but just being tapped into your own energy, understanding your chi, your prana, your tantien, your battery, your lower battery. If you're tapped into that, you don't need to do anything. We're not even talking about having sex. Just being in presence of other people create this huge scalar effect. And these people know this. They're using technologies. They understand the astrology probably better than us, because some of our astrology has been maybe manipulated to some extent, or some of those things have been left out purposefully here, as they do with the Kabbalah and all these other secret societies. There's always part of it that's open and part of it that's hidden. So they understand what's going on here. So this hijacking and perhaps this attempt to prevent this scalar effect was only a delay in time. As we're seeing it now, it's starting to grow again. So we're seeing it at the 3D level, at the banking level, for example. The reverse repos were showing that there was a huge stress in the financial system just before this particular event happened a couple of years ago. And now that we're moving away from this event, and we still don't have the cover of this event, we're seeing the banking system crash again. So too, on the energetic level, we're seeing the expansion of this energy, not just at the divine feminine energy level, but also at the divine masculine. Going back to what you just said about the importance of the divine feminine, to me, my understanding, for this to really work, and part of this knowledge, you can find it in David Dita's books, The Way of the Superior Man. He's talking about balancing the divine feminine and masculine, but for a lot of the wounded masculines, they really need the divine feminine to step up first. They're the caregivers. They're the ones who give birth to these to babies, right? They have more power to heal that wounded masculine. But once that wounded masculine is healed, then he can step to the plate and hold and honor and cherish the divine feminine as she goes through her cycles, as Meg was talking about now. And this is why, again, all of this distortion is in our field of view. You mentioned porn earlier. Wow. Okay. First of all, thank you again for suggesting this topic matter, because we really need to get into it. Penny Kelly said on the last show too, like we're probably going to do a course on this for the Academy, really get into the details here. Some of this stuff, of course, can be on YouTube. That's how I got my first channel deleted, was talking about this stuff. So I'm a little bit hesitant here tonight. Let's go to the maybe the blood part for just a moment, and not to be gory or anything, but just to go back to what Meg was saying of how absolutely sacred it is. And once you understand how sacred it is, all of this weird stuff, the wokeism, these campaigns that are being used against us, really start to fall flat. Right now, we're so confused. We've been under these subversion tactics for so long, not even recognizing that we don't know heads or tails about anything anymore. But in the blood, again, we were talking about this with Jay Weiner on the Nostradamus show. It has to do with alchemy. And so blood, urine, semen, to some extent, second gate and third gate waters, I'll call them waters for this show here, they all contribute to the Philosopher's Stone. So that holds the wand with the Philosopher's Stone, right? So again, understanding the power of that and how absolutely crazy powerful it is, like Meg said earlier, yeah, it feels good and it's fun and all that, but really it's your most expansive power in terms of you manifesting your destiny. So if you think about it, if you can create a life that's going to go on and create other things, imagine if you use that own energy for you, for yourself, to manifest your destiny, as opposed to living like a pinball in a pinball machine here, being, pushed left and right by the matrix of control. That's really why we need to have these conversations. And that's the level of conversation we should all be having, because again, like Penny Kelly said, it's the last gate to our freedom, really.
Super powerful. Wow. Yeah, the blood is something that is very triggering for some people, because first of all, it's blood. And, blood is, comes out of us through either when we cut ourselves for an accident, or women for when we bleed. So we do associate it a lot with pain and suffering a lot of ways, just on like a subconscious kind of level. But the blood that women bleed, and this is something that I've heard a lot about and I've looked into, but I feel like there's even more that's going to come out with this in the coming years, more in the mainstream. It's part of our womb space, if you will. It's part of our sacred area where creation is made from. It is so filled with power and nutrients that, there's been studies done that when you put your moon blood on plants, or even your own face, I don't know if any of you ladies have ever tried that, or even men, your face glows. You can even drink it. I know that's like very controversial, but it's extremely healing and powerful. And you can do manifestation work. You can manifest your destiny with it. You can do healing work with it. It used to be used for healing. So that does have to do with sex, obviously, because it's the woman and the woman's cycle and the creation process. And all these things are going to be coming back more into how we're going to live. Again, our old ways are going to be coming back that the dark arts have taken away from us. You got to think about this, you guys. I've been feeling so much like the Vatican very, very strongly. And Julie and I just did our last Psychic Spies episode on the Pope. And one of the last astro decodes that Julie and I did, we were talking about the eclipse season coming up, April, May. And I kept feeling the Vatican so strongly with that. So I think at this year, some point even, things could start getting released from the Vatican. Really important documents and texts they've been holding from us. And all of this natural ancient knowledge literally got burned out of us. It got tortured out of us. And we're lucky that we even have any of it to this day. We're lucky we're even sitting here having this conversation right now, right? It's actually a miracle when you think about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sorry, I went on a few different directions there, but
that's okay. Yeah. In terms of the ingestation, okay, if you want to go there, I'll flow with you. No pun intended, but Queen Mother of the West, Jiwang Mu, really the goddess or the Queen Mother here in the West. There's a lot of traditions and books written about how emperors would seek her out to essentially drink from the fountain of youth, quote unquote, here for YouTube. So you'll understand here we're talking about some specific types of waters. And so when you said how powerful the blood was because it was part of the womb, so too are these waters, because whether it's inside the womb or some of these waters that are closely associated to the womb, it's very possible right now, and science is catching up to the fact that some of the components are non-local. So just how your womb is a portal for life, right? You've got the soul that comes right in, imprints into the embryo, and then eventually creates a life through the portal. There is also energy there. And in terms of protoplasma, I had a show with Dr. Richard Allen Miller, which was the reason I got deleted on the second channel, I believe it was, when he talked about this stuff live on YouTube. So we'll tread carefully here, but essentially we need to understand that the power there, again, as Penny Kelly was saying, is much, much, much more powerful than we know, and could also be non-local. So think about that for a moment. There's experiments now in the last 10 years that show that what the Taoists were saying, let's see if we can bring healing. Okay, so this book here, if you haven't read this book, Healing Love Through the Tao. Okay, so basically cultivating female and male sexual energy. They talked about the different gates of orgasm. And in one of them, for the female, the third gate, the uterus actually changes position. And this is old sacred knowledge, a couple of thousand years old in books. And just recently, with the advent of technologies, with MRI machines, they were able to validate that was actually true. That at the third gate, the uterus changes position and starts vibrating, sending this huge signal that perhaps transverses this physicality, this reality that we're in, into other realities. Now, I bring that up for a reason, because another part of the healing through cultivating sexual energy has to do with reestablishing and strengthening your channel to God, for lack of better words, your higher self, to global consciousness, to universal consciousness. And when you strengthen that channel, one thing happens. You can't get fooled anymore. You have access to your inner knowing. You have access to your 12 doers, if you think of the knower, doer, and thinker model of the triune human. So again, this knowledge is so important. Speak to that a little bit if you can, or if you want to. If you have any guidance, you can pull some cards on that too. What do the audience need to know about using this energy, first to heal yourself? Because you can't really create when you're not healing. You're not healed, because you're going to be creating from a space of a wounded person, and the result of your creations will be wounded. Again, this is a Taoist term. But speak about the importance maybe from the healing aspect, but also for strengthening that channel so that you cannot be overwhelmed, overpowered, subverted by all of these mindfuck tactics that they're using against us. Hey.
Exactly. Totally. What you're saying is actually what a lot of people have been saying in the comments, that when we're confused, when we're not in a healthy balance of our masculine and feminine, we can so easily be controlled and messed with. So this is really, it can seem like basic stuff, you guys, but this is really, really important for living your best life and manifesting destiny, is that masculine energy and that feminine energy inside you, those sides, and which one you're maybe more active in. It's good to notice which one you're maybe more active in, which one you're not as active in. What spaces are you more in your feminine and your masculine? When you're around certain people, are you more in your feminine or masculine? You can observe your whole life through the lens of your masculine and feminine, where you're operating from one of those, when they feel comfortable, when they don't feel comfortable, right? And it's really, really important, like JC's saying, to have that balance of both so that we can be strong energetically, right? We're seeing, I know it's really, really sad. I don't personally know, actually, no, that's not true. I actually have a really close friend that I haven't spoken with in a long time that has transitioned. And won't get too into that, but a lot of the people are doing this from a place of confusion, and that it's being programmed for them to do it. Do I
can I share with that? I know it's difficult for you I don't have any friends, so let me speak from my own perspective here. The idea of this transition also creates another big problem. If the Taoists are correct, I believe they are, and so far the science seems to be catching up to what these guys were saying thousands of years ago. The orgasm, or the act of orgasm, is opening the gate. So this last bone here between heaven and earth, your body and your pineal gland, is the representation here in 3D. And when you do so, you realign with self. So this alignment with self, this alignment with your core mission, the alignment with God or your fractal of the other fractals of God is very important. And that keeps you sane. That keeps you embodied. That keeps you... There's two words. In aster, so align with a star, or in disaster, right? So those are the words that are attached to that nomenclature. So you want to be in aster as best possible in your life, because that means you're aligned, and therefore you're aligned with the stars. Everything makes sense to you, and you could be at the maximum of your potential. Now, part of the matrix of control here is to knock you off of being in aster and put you in this aster, right? In disaster. That's the nature of this game. To create turmoil, it creates pain, suffering, and loosh, and that's food for maybe another conversation and another people. So we'll leave that aside for now. But going back to the people in transition, most of them, through the surgery process, can no longer again achieve orgasm.
Correct.
Therefore, can never again achieve a realignment or going back to in aster, right? In align with the stars or align with yourself. That is so crucial. If people only understood that before going through this, what appears to be a glamorized process, the Jenner is the Woman of the Year award, it's a man, like all of this stuff that we're being fucked with. And yet, if you look at the pictures of what these surgeries actually entail, and the Frankenstein nature of all, and then you realize the energy aspect of it, oh my God, we can nip this in the bud really, really quick. And my heart goes out to everybody who perhaps were fooled by this and all that, because at the heart of it, they're taking all of this, these chemicals to readjust the hormones in their body for the rest of their life. They're taking hormones and medicine to not be depressive all the time, right? So they're having all of these issues. And on top of that, they're no longer in aster, and their ability to get back in aster has been taken away. So let me just bring this up too. This same book here, if you want to read that, it says basically that when you're at orgasm also, it's not just this in aster connection with self, but all the cells in your body realign. So even at the body level, it's very helpful if you're not sending out the energy, if you're keeping it in. That's a whole other show. But that alignment of that energy at orgasm suggests also the lengthening of your telomeres. It also talks about your length of life. And so going back to Jiwang, these emperors who were seeking her knowledge and to drink from her fountain of youth were living 800, 900 years as per their history books. So is this an important conversation? Hell yes.
Hell yeah. You just brought up so many amazing points, JC. And as you were speaking, Colleen said, this is actually bringing up a lot of trauma for me. I guess I still have some things to let go of. So yeah. For me, when we're talking about this, I can actually really feel my sacral chakra and like stuff coming up with that. So if there are things coming up for you guys, maybe write it down. Remind yourself later. It could be good to meditate on, do some healing work on, because this is a huge subject right here, what we're touching on. And when you were talking about orgasm, JC, and the power of that, we both know that that moment when we do orgasm is the greatest time of manifestation. That is the greatest point you can make any intention or any manifestation whatsoever. Very powerful. And another thing I think along with this subject is, and I'm a Scorpio, so I'm comfortable talking about this kind of stuff, all this sex stuff.
Okay, hold this out for just a second before we get too deep in it. A few people are asking me to pin the book, so let me just bring this Amazon link if you guys want it. Fascinating book. Actually, this one is more derived for the female. There's a one specifically for male. Also, if you just look at Montauk Chia, he's the author. And this one also, too, if you're in a relationship, again, some of the same concepts and techniques, but really in divine union. So first, you heal yourself, go through this book. If you're female or masculine, choose a book that most is appropriate to you. And then in relationship, you bring it up to another notch in the fact that 1 + 1 does not equal 2. It actually equals 3. So that energy exchange in divine union can go even faster. And this, again, is the technology that we're talking about, that Penny Kelly is talking about here, and perhaps coming to the Academy in a course later on. So that's the book. Now, Meg, go back to what you were saying. You're a Scorpio and what?
Yeah, I'm a Scorpio, and in astrology, Scorpio rules sex. So I'm comfortable having these conversations. For some people, it can be kind of like, oh my God. But actually, I'm not seeing any negative comments. So that's awesome.
Well, this is the BeyondMystic community. These guys are ready.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I wanted to bring up that, if you know anybody that's ever done any kind of sex work, which I happen to know some people that have done stuff like that, you hear stories about what people have like turn-ons with, what makes some people get to that point of orgasm, if you will. And there's so much perversion. And I think it's really good to be conscious of what are the things that kind of turn us on or make us get to that point. And is it coming from some sort of pattern or program, or is it coming from actually our relationship with ourselves and what's natural in our partner? And if you can watch for that and be conscious of that, then your manifestation power, when you enter into sexual space, can go really amazing. You can really manifest.
And conversely, it could also be used to create the prison of your own enslavery. So, or your own slavery? Enslavement was the word I was looking for. So if you watch the movie Smallfoot, it's like a little cartoon. I watch it for my kids. So these are Bigfoot that don't think humans exist, and humans, of course, don't believe that Bigfoot exists. It's funny because the Bigfoot there had been allowed to believe that they live atop this mountain and humans don't exist, and the mountain is being held up by this cloud. But every day they're working to produce energy and to produce steam that basically is the cloud they see below them, but is also the prison that makes it impossible for them to leave where they are and to actually realize the nature of the reality they live in, right? Okay, so going back to sexuality, but more specifically, the ways you get to orgasm, as you were just describing. Again, I'll choose my words here for YouTube. But when you think of something, you and I did this show now on the egregores and the tulpas. And so we can, as humans, we can create egregores and tulpas with our thoughts. So that's the first step.
Yeah.
If you add to your thoughts sexual energy, you are adding nuclear energy to the creation of your thought. So, fuck Meg. You're going to get me in trouble. So think about this. And again, I'm not shaming anybody here. We're all messed up at that level. We're all taught very wrong things about who we are and how to approach this energy, each and every one of us. And we all have to, it's not a race. We're all in it against ourselves, really, is our race. It's a very unique and lonely path to walk the path of self-mastery. Only you can do that. Nobody else can do it for you. Okay, so having said that, once you understand that this energy and your thoughts can create tulpas, and go back to that show if you haven't seen it, we won't get into it here. And if you use sexual energy to basically bring yourself to orgasm by thinking of a fantasy, a person outside of your union, a person outside of you, you are sending that person your energy. So whether that's a real person or a Hollywood star you like, I don't know, George Clooney comes to mind. People here on the show talk about George Clooney all the time. Who was on this yesterday? Somebody talked to me about George Clooney. At any rate, or something else that doesn't exist, you are actually creating and sending your life force energy to that entity. And you're creating another entity that eventually, as more people give it energy, has the capability to self-actualize, leave it that way. So then, again, we go back to what Richard Allen Miller was saying. If humans, he said man, but if humans actually understood the power and the responsibility that comes with that energy, they would hold very sacred the thoughts they entertain during orgasm.
Yeah.
It's to that effect. And that was the last part of the show before we got deleted. So food for thought there. Not telling you anything. Not pointing the fingers at anybody in the show, but think about that for a moment. So let's go back to what the original point of Meg was saying. if you use this energy for yourself, really, for your health, for the benefit of your children, for your highest good, for your abundance, for your joy, for your happiness, for your couple, all that stuff. Imagine the power you can bring to it if you're doing it in a conscious, very directed manner. And again, as humans, we don't think like that. We're not brought up to think like that. So on one hand, I'm warning you, don't go the other direction where you're causing yourself pain and more disaster. But please, from now on, once you know and you're empowered this information, you have to start at least thinking of, oh, wait a second, how do I make sure I don't use this energy badly, but how can I start applying it for my condition, for my freedom, for my joy, for my bliss, for my happiness, that of my children and the people I love? That is a conversation worth having every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Very well said. Yes. And Giselle Sabo here says, you can bring a lot of bad energies and entities to the person you fantasize over. Be careful. And very true. And I think that, this can be triggering for a lot of us, because this is something that most of us have been brought up in this normie world that we've had for the past 100 years or whatever, with the Rockefeller Foundation based society that we've been living in, right? Which is totally disconnecting us, trying to disconnect us from our natural ways. But it's not our fault, you guys, if we have had fantasies about other people. If that is something that we're going through right now, we can work on it. And we're having this conversation right now for a reason. And we're all going to become better at this, right? We're all going to have really healthy sexual lives starting now and into the future. And this is also part of Pluto and Aquarius. Is the beginning of it is we're going to see the dark side of Aquarius play out first. But Aquarius is also, information and higher learning and science. And so we're going to see all areas of life really getting into the science of what it means and understanding kind of the facts and even the spiritual science of what it means. So I'm excited with this topic, what's going to be coming up over the next 22 years with Pluto in Aquarius. And Pluto does rule sex in astrology. So
that's interesting. And of course, Aquarius is the knowledge bearer. So understanding our own power, going within, as opposed to giving our power away to other people to try to make our lives better. Julie was just talking about that in the show today, the external savior myth. No, nobody's coming to save you but you. Let's go back to that comment. And I brought up a little something to show you. Gisela, you can bring a lot of bad energies. Okay, and entities. Yeah. So let's get into the concept of cord cutting. We're already an hour in, and Meg, let's finish on this. You're absolutely right, Gisela. And that, okay, so when I said earlier, first thing first, you got to stop the bleeding. So stop giving your energy to other people. One. So you can do that consciously and start putting your energy towards what you want for your manifestation in your own life. Now, as it pertains to past partners, you've created cords between both of you, between each of your partners, and to some extent, each of your partners. That's how far the cords of energetic draw go. So right away in your life, here's a practical thing you can do, is start to consciously cut cords with past partners so that energy no longer is drained from you. Whether you're sending it out unconsciously or they're still pulling it in consciously or unconsciously, it is happening at one level or another. And if you add the compounding effect of all the partners and the partners, that's a hell of a lot of energy drawing on your breaker box. And so if you want to feel better today, look younger, have the ability to manifest in your life, you want to cut. So I have a friend of mine, amazing medicine woman, who built this for me. So you can see here, that's a golden obsidian spear. And it has what's Ibu in English? Owl. Wow. So looking into the dark, peering into the dark, and cutting these cords. Now, this was made for me specifically on order, and you don't need to go that crazy, but I used to use this in Reiki sessions also. Let's talk about your practices and cord cutting and how you can help people go through that same process with them, whether they have the implements or not. Even the
Mhm.
intention, the ceremony, the energy you put to that intention is still very, very powerful. Meg, let's end on
Yeah,
that.
definitely. Well, even though YouTube is crazy censored at the moment, I do love YouTube for the sense that you can find any guided meditation or guided ritual practice on YouTube. So there's cord cutting meditations and practices guided that you can listen to on YouTube or online, which is nice because you're just hearing someone guide you through it and just kind of relaxing and going through that process. But if you want to do that more yourself, what I personally do is I'd lie down rather than sit down. That's just me personally. But when it comes to a cord cutting, I find that to be kind of an intense energy. And actually, I usually take a salt bath before doing any cord cutting to help just move the energy and just kind of cleanse myself beforehand and get ready for something to really be released. And then I personally like to call in Archangel Michael, who is an energy and archetype of protection and cleansing. If Archangel Michael doesn't resonate with you, you can call upon your soul appointed spirit team, guides, energies, and beings of the highest light and love that are there to help you cleanse your energetic field. And I just give them permission to cleanse any cords that I may be holding from anyone in my life. And maybe you want to focus on someone in particular, or you want to just do it in general. Like if there's any draining cords that you have with anybody in your life, just giving permission for spirit, for your higher self to remove them. That's personally what I like to do. And sometimes I even will stand up and do it if I've had a weird kind of confrontation with someone or something really weird with someone. I'll just kind of go like this in front of me and just say out loud, I cut all cords now between me and this person that are not of love, that are not of compassion. And I always like to visualize after I've done like some cleansing process of the cords, visualize from my heart to whatever person's heart that I'm doing this with, just a beautiful kind of energy of love between us, or like a rainbow between us. So, okay, we've gotten rid of the yucky stuff. We've gotten rid of the yucky energy, and we're bringing in some love. We're bringing in some rainbow healing energy. So that's personally how I like to do it. Is there a certain way that you like to do it, JC?
All of the above. And again, okay, so first of all, Tim says, any chance of a show cord cutting? I was like, yeah, we probably have to go in that. And I know that I think this is already in the queue for the Academy. Julie had, there's a workshop on psychic protection. And I think in there we were touching the cord cutting, but we might do a whole show or a whole workshop just on the cord cutting itself. So Tim, let me just ask Julie where she is on the schedule on that, and we'll give you updates when it's ready. But great question. For me, well, first of all, I love the salt. Big thing here too. There's a huge selenite here. It weighs 70 pounds. So that's me cutting around after the show also to stop the energy.
Awesome.
That's very important. The
Love
black
it.
obsidian, if you're into crystals, so I'm just gonna maybe answer that question first. The selenite for sure is very good. Again, it goes to the salt idea of what Meg was talking about. The black stones also, so the obsidians, the tourmalines, they help for that as well. Now, if you're going to make something for yourself and invoke the energy in it for yourself also, that is also a very powerful tool because it becomes an extension of your own power. Now, some people, for example, will go to Reiki sessions or to different healers, to shamans, medicine women, all that to go through the cord cutting process. And I want to tell you that depending where you are in your evolution, to say it that way, you might require a shaman or a medicine woman. Depending on the level of connection with a dark entity, you might need some extra help.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you are perfectly empowered to do this yourself, without crystals, without salt, without anything other than your intention.
Yeah.
Intention, if you do it right, solves pretty much everything. If you put your energy to your intention, you can do this. Now, for some people, just to give you a practice also, when you have a thought in your mind, it's at the first stage of creation. As soon as you take a pen and you write it down, you're already closer to manifesting in reality. There's something written on a physical paper. You see what I mean? So maybe write down that intention. Go through the names of the people you want to cut energies, ties with, write them down. Fire is very important in all of this also. In the Firewalk seminars I've done in the past too, a lot of the participants there were doing exactly that, cord cutting through the fire, right? So you don't necessarily need to walk on fire as I did through some of these practices, but in writing it down, doing your own personalized ceremony for you, and then burning that paper in your fireplace pretty much has the same effect also. Intention is everything on that. I hope that answers, but again, we could do a whole show on this. There's so many ways to do that. And at the end of the day, you have to believe and be so strong and resolute in your capability of doing it. And whatever tactic you take will work as long as you believe you have the power to do it, right? You only need to do it once. You don't need to cut cords 10 times. If you're really intent and honest in your approach, and you actually give it your energy, and you know you're coming from a place of power, which we all are coming from a place of power, you can cut once and for all. So that being said, I hope that answers your question. But again, we could do a whole other show on all the different tactics. I think it's worth it because people need to understand the different ways. And then from hearing them, it's like, oh, yeah, this one resonates to me, and I'll use that one. Because again, if it resonates to you, you will feel more empowered with it. You will feel more confident about what you're doing. And from that confidence comes, of course, the power and ultimate capability in the knowing of your own internal power. So that's big. Angelica. Okay. Tough question. I've been happily single for 5 years with no desire to pleasure myself. Are you saying, JC, that I should reignite my sexual energy to increase my creativity and overall well-being? The general answer to that would be yes, of course. Now, so for you specifically, Angelica, my answer would be, I don't know. It really depends where you're coming from. So, for example, if you're coming from a deep place of trauma, of sexual trauma, of abuse, of rape, and I can go on a list, you would have to seek out a specific process that is convenient to that, to healing that specific trauma first. So I guess that's the best I can do without any other information. Meg, do you want to maybe pull some cards on that too, to give her specifically more?
Yes, I just got to grab my cards over there. So just one moment.
Great question, Angelica. We'll see what we can do with you here, and perhaps with the cards we can get some additional insight for you. A very personal and private question. A lot of energy and how do you say it?
My cards here.
Hold on, Meg. I'm trying to channel a word. Bravery behind the question from the questioner there too. So let me see.
Yeah, that's very brave to say that, Angelica. Yeah. And I think you speak. I'm getting Spirit is saying you actually speak for a lot of people right now by speaking those words. So thank you. Yeah. So I'm asking for guidance on, Angelica, for you, and hope you don't mind we're doing that, but also for anyone just in general going through that as well, right? Mm-hmm. And I've got my Archangel Michael cards. You and your loved ones are safe. So that's interesting. Maybe some of us that may be feeling like that maybe don't feel safe for some reason with that energy. Maybe things that have happened in the past, maybe the way relationships ended. It's time to leave this unhealthy situation.
That's pretty clear, because you and your loved ones can be the various aspect of yourself. So not necessarily talking about other partners here, but the different aspects of yourself: mental, physical, spiritual, and maybe other fractals of yourself. If you go into the triune human model, that's a very clear answer. Go ahead.
And this confirms also what you said, JC. Write about your thoughts and feelings.
Wow.
So I know for me, that's something that I used to every day. Before we had smartphones, you guys, I used to write poetry and songs every day. And that's something I really want to get back into. But also just your feelings and writing it down. And you start to realize things when you write it down, like JC was saying. And it's also your intention. And then through writing the things, you realize the truth of situations, and then can write out, I let go of this now, or I call this in now, or I am going to start doing this now. Right? Mm-hmm. So this is Archangel Michael's affirming that.
Are you kidding me? Out of all the cards in the deck,
yeah, isn't that
let's
crazy?
Write it down.
So crazy.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah.
And you know what I love? There. That's it right there on the screen. Gisela, sending healing love to Angelica. That's the beauty of this community. Thank you so much, Gisela. I appreciate that. And of course, Angelica says, wow, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Merci beaucoup to you also, Meg.
I
Go ahead.
also,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, and I do notice, Angelica, like, yeah, and I don't mind getting personal here. I like being an open book with you guys, even myself personally. And I've been noticing with friends and clients, a lot of us just aren't feeling as sexual as maybe we normally would because of kind of the collective energy right now. And this might not resonate with everybody right now, but there's so much that we're processing. There's so much that's going on right now. And Aquarius, which Pluto has just gone into, is the opposite sign to Leo, which is Leo rules the enjoyments of life and romance and having fun and feeling romantic, right? And Aquarius is technical. Aquarius is the mind. It's not really sexual, it's scientific. So we're very much in a space of analyzing information every day, keeping up like what's going on now, what's going on now, what's going on now, like online and social media. And that cuts us off from the sexual energy. To be in the sexual energy, and I'm speaking to myself as well as all of you guys, like we got to be in nature. We got to be eating good foods. We got to be drinking good water. We got to be doing all the things that we always say to do, right? And there's a lot trying to throw us off from that at the moment, Angelica and everybody else. So if you are feeling that way, it's not necessarily, yes, it can be from maybe traumas or things that have happened, but I am just feeling spirit say, hey, there's a lot going on collectively. And this is something that actually a lot of people are feeling right now. Oh, can't hear you, JC. Are you muted?
Okay, first of all, thank you to all the comments in the chat. Really appreciate it. If you're watching this on replay too, or after the show, if other thoughts come to your mind, I'm speaking to the viewers, leave us a comment below this video also, because in the last Manifest Destiny show Meg and I produced, we got into a lot of uncharted territories also, and we weren't sure. It's hard sometimes to be out on this branch with you guys, so your feedback is absolutely crucial. And then that last show too, you guys were like, oh my god, this conversation needed to happen. You guys were so appreciative of it, so please let us know, either you're in the live chat now or on replay after the show, what these conversations mean to you, perhaps other things you'd like us to touch upon next time, but really how impactful this particular conversation was to you. What's your takeaway? Let us know in the comment section below if you can, and if you feel like sharing with the audience, I think that would be great. So one. Two, as you were just talking there, Meg, too, I thought, let me bring this up. I have this, I remember this French religious show on TV back in maybe the 80s. I forget the title of it. It was on TFO or TVO. Maybe TVO. Yeah, I think it was TVO. I didn't read TFO, I think. It doesn't matter. And one of the young hosts kind of made a mistake. He was joking, and it created a huge backlash because it was the show was sponsored basically from a very religious point of view. And the young show host at the time said something to the effect that the month of May was the International Month of Masturbation. And so as we were talking, I'm like, I'll just bring that. Was that true? Did that guy make a mistake? And it created a whole uproar, and all the sisterhood was like the sisters and the priests were all angry at the show. At any rate, yeah, May is the International Masturbation Month. Good vibes. There's a specific day, I believe, May 28th. Happy Masturbation Day. Okay, May 28th. What's in the astrology for this May? I know we have two eclipses, April and May. May 5th is the last eclipse.
Yeah.
What's happening towards the end of May, or anything in the astrology also that would suggest that maybe reconnecting with this energy is actually more empowering than people think? Like, is there any astrology that would point to that? What are your thoughts?
Very, very much so. Very, very important. So first of all, by the end of May, we will be out of the Mercury retrograde. We will be out of the Mercury shadow period. So I believe the retrograde is over May 14th, and we have something called a shadow period, and that's going to be until June 1st. So around the end of May is when we're really out of the energy of this. And also, end of May is Gemini season. Yay. So communication, socialization, wanting to be around other people, wanting to flirt with other people. It's going to be more of the natural energy. And also we'll be really into the summertime energy as well. And when we get into the summer, that is when the dark arts is at their lowest frequency of power. Because, and you know, we're Northern Hemisphere people, so we're speaking from the Northern Hemisphere, JC and I, but it's very hard for them to do things, to make crazy, chaotic events, because it's the summer, it's the sun time, it's light, and it's love, and it's romance. And we do naturally actually feel more sexual in the summer. So I did pull some cards as well, JC, and they're affirming that this was extremely important for us to talk about today, that we need to be looking at this in our lives, sharing this actually with our friends, maybe even sharing this video. So check this out, you guys. I can never hold these cards right. I'll just one by one. So this is from a really cool oracle deck that I love called Angels and Ancestors. This is a really neat little deck by Kyle Gray. And I asked, what's our 3-card message for everyone here this evening, for everyone that's going to be watching this video? And I got the Hunter, which is divine masculine. Track down your fears and desires. The Snake, which is the symbol of Kundalini and Tantra and sex. And the Wise One, which represents the divine feminine. Grow within your current situation. So we've talked about the masculine, we've talked about the feminine, and we've talked about the sensuality and the Kundalini. I think the cards are just affirming that we're on the right track here, and that this is important for us to start tuning into that part of our lives, especially as we're coming into the summertime, which is enjoying life, right? We're getting out of the winter if you're in the Northern Hemisphere.
Wow. Isn't that fascinating? Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the cards. Thank you for the validation. Ben the Rocks was asking, wait a second here. It might be a dark day on May 28th. If they're telling us this day to masturbate, maybe they're using that energy for something else. You're probably right. Yeah. But that's not to say that you can't reclaim that power. So maybe not the 28th. I probably steer away to wave 28. Religion is talking about that for a specific reason. I'm with you on that, Ben. I have a distrust of this, but nevertheless, if there's something there to the energies, of course they can use it to cultivate our energies and use it against us, as we know, just like Halloween, right? But we can recapture the power of Halloween for ourselves too. This is what we were talking about in the last show, and people were kind of angry at us. Oh, you didn't talk about the dirty and ugly stuff at Halloween. I'm like, no, we chose not to. We decided to reclaim that beautiful energy and to bring it for ourselves, for our own highest good. So same thing here, of course, with the month of May, guys. So don't be afraid. Just, again, intention is key. So I think we can do a part 2, May, because we're an hour 20 minutes into it. Definitely. And I wanted to bring up a few more books with you guys. Maybe what I'll do, so first of all, I'll go back to the Montauk Chia page, if you guys are just tuning in now, that was the first book we talked about here. And for the next show, I wanted to bring this up with you. Beautiful friend of mine, Brave, Beautiful, and Bearing It All by Rihanna Watson. She explains why nudity is so powerful. And that's triggering for a lot of people. Yeah. I'll get into that with you in our next show.
Amazing.
And how you can use nudity, your expression of your body, to heal yourself from many, many traumas. And she goes through explaining the traumas that she healed for herself using this technology. And I say technology, what are you talking about, JC? You just knew it's not technology. We're getting into 0 point energy, but there's going to be a whole show on that. Then you can go into, look at this book, Sex Shamans.
Wow.
Okay. And very powerful book, also giving you insights, practices. And again, there it's not about do what's on page 43 or 49 or 69. But it's about empowering yourself with these old practices and remembering for yourself what connects to you. And then using that as a tool in your toolkit to, again, go higher and higher in your own cultivation of your own energy and to repurpose it towards your own manifestation, your higher bliss, your joy, your health and that of your loved ones. So very important book. $20 I think on Amazon. And the last one here is you just mentioned it, the Magdalene manuscripts. That takes a whole hour to get into that too, but again, more different practices there too, to understand that we're talking about a technology here, but it's nothing to be afraid of. It is our technology, our innate technology, and for the most part, it's been robbed away from our consciousness, and it's important for us to reclaim that as well. So perhaps all of that for the next show.
Yeah, for sure.
Doom, 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 after the break, but it'll be a week. A few weeks. Everyone's like, no, tell me now. Somebody was saying, hey, should we do this show on Rumble instead? Because, censorship. My gut feeling would be no. Simply because most of the people waking up are here on YouTube. Right? Your reaction when you leave CNN and all that is not to go to BitChute, Rumble, all these places. It's to go to YouTube. And these are the people really we need to talk to. The Rumble people will find us no problem. And I think we could still manage having some of these conversations, even if we have to choose our words. But judging by the audience members here tonight and their comments, they understood what we were talking about here, even though we were skirting around some of the nomenclature. So that's my guess for now. If that changes, we can always change our strategy later on. But yeah.
Cool.
Last parting words, Meg, before we go? Hey, well, okay. You just mentioned something about Scorpio, how easy it is for you to talk about this. I saw a lot of comments of people saying, ooh, it's not too easy for me. It's not easy for my girlfriend. It's not easy for my boyfriend. How does knowing your own astrology, perhaps even knowing your partner's astrology, help you here in trying to navigate all of this? Going first towards the healing part, understanding perhaps past lives where you have blockages with your north node, south node, and marshaling all of that information here for your highest good. What does astrology have to offer, and what do you have to offer here on MAISON.com?
Yeah, really good point, JC. With the astrology, that's why I love it so much and I'm so passionate about it. We can really look at any area of life, any part of our lives. So we can definitely look at relationships, sexuality, our values with that in our chart, what our natural energies are. What are the things that are in natural alignment with us to help us get the most in touch with those parts of ourselves, to be in the healthiest relationships with those parts of ourselves. So we can definitely look at that in the astrology for sure.
Wow, very good. Coupon code BeyondMystic is still available, guys, on these readings. You can go find Meg here, of course, at MAISONJupiter.com. Let me bring the link down in the live chat now. What does it look like for the schedule now? When are you booked until, if people want to book with you, what are they looking at in terms of time frame?
So I'm fully booked. I think it's until June 27th or June 28th. I have my next openings and then going into July and August.
Well, make quick, guys. Make books up really quickly here. So if you're interested in that, and also maybe check the last couple of Decode shows. And I think Julie mentioned, let me see if I can bring up her YouTube channel here too. Yes, if you haven't seen it, go check out the Mercury Retrograde Decode, Astro Decode. They produced yesterday, I believe it was, or the day before. Man, time flies. But Julie was also saying that perhaps she would revisit this topic here in the Divine Feminine Oracle show, maybe next week or the week after that. So we'll see if we can put that on the schedule. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe here on Maison Jupiter if you haven't already done so. And of course, you can do so here also on Beyond Mystic. What do I have coming up here? There's a couple of things I wanted to share with you. I think tomorrow, Bruce Cesal should be here. Okay, well, first of all, Beyond Harmony. So the weekly meditations with Elena at noon. Don't want to miss that. Okay. And if you're going to do cord cutting, start with a little bit of harmony in your life. Do a little bit of meditation for sure. Elena will be able to guide you through that. And maybe then over the weekend, try your cord cutting ceremonies. And of course, if you want to join me at 1, Bruce Cesal is going to be on the show tomorrow night. We're going to talk about his amazing captures on and around the surface of the moon, including here in our own atmosphere. So it's going to be a really, really cool show. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This was the Manifest Destiny with the one and only Meg Moonbeam. I love you guys. Have a great evening, and leave us a comment and leave us a like if you can. I love you guys. I love you, Meg. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.
Love you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.